Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
But tell me, Eddie, is that a rabbit in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are back for the ones and twos this month, and for the ones and twos discussions, we're talking basically the duology of Sherlock Holmes films from Guy Ritchie. The first of which is basically the eponymous name Sherlock Holmes. So, and the sequel, which we'll be talking next week, is Sherlock Holmes: Game of Shadows.
Yes.
So we'll be going into discussing that. It's been a while since I've seen that one. I definitely have to rewatch it, and I rewatched this one recently, even though I remembered this one much better than the sequel, because well, I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed this take on Sherlock Holmes. But then again, I was talking to Orange Hat in the back. I typically enjoy Guy Ritchie films. I like his style. I like. Really like the chemistry he creates amongst the characters in their dialogue, like their back and forth, things like that, and like some for example, and I'm jumping ahead of myself basically, where it's you have Watson and Holmes sitting next to each other, and they're kind of making up without the whole "I'm sorry" sort of situation. After a certain thing happens to Watson, but you can tell in their mannerisms that it's the proverbial water under the bridge. Holmes is apologizing in his own way. Watson's accepting in his own way, sort of a situation without so many words, basically. And at its core, while it's a different take on the eponymous character and his, companion, I'll call him, he's not really an assistant, he's a companion, Dr. Watson. At their core, they are very much the characters. If you've read any books or anything like that, seen the movies, Sherlock Holmes, like for example, Sherlock Holmes actually was a drug addict in the books.
Yes.
So he very much was a drug addict. So seeing him, like there's a scene and there's a little bit of trivia where Watson says, "That's for eye surgery, right?" Well, yeah, a certain drug, crack, in liquid form was actually used as an anesthetic. For surgeries. At some point, drugs were used in that regard for surgeries. So basically, but in the books, he injects it. But in this one, they had him drinking it. But that's very much at the core of the character, because the character was also a drug addict. Dr. Watson was a military veteran, so he can hold his own in a fight. And they're back and forth and so forth. You have Irene Adler, you have Inspector Lestrade, and so forth. And basically Guy Ritchie's take, but still, according to Kate Roberts, like closer to the books in terms of the character. I think the only thing that Guy Ritchie, according to the trivia, like outright omitted, like from the get-go, when he was like brought on to make these movies, was he got rid of the deerstalker cap. He's like, that's out. He didn't want to do that. And the game's afoot, the much quoted "the game's afoot" Watson sort of situation. He kind of omitted that. It's like kind of like cliched expressions that people have come to associate with Sherlock Holmes. He omitted so his take was fresh. But anyway, before I say hello to the chat, after that long ass intro from my take on the movie, Orange Hat, let everybody know where they can find you and all that fun stuff. Whatever you have coming up.
Well, I recently hit 1,600 for approximately 2 days. So thank you to everybody who got me to 1,600. I still need to get there because YouTube knocked me down a peg. So anybody in the chat wants to hit or put me back up to 1,600, much appreciated. I'm still trying to get to 2,000 so I could do a giveaway for my channel. You can find me on X at OrangeHat2185 and at Orange Hat Revived. There's no A in orange in that one because, the character limitation. But other than that, I do movie discussions. I do theme streams. Next week's theme stream is the fourth Guilty Pleasure, which will be Man of Steel. I just got done doing AVP Extended. I'm one of those people who, even though there's a couple actors that I absolutely hate out there, I still like the Snyderverse trilogy. So, sue me.
Oh,
but yeah. I
I
still
mean, like
are.
to be fair, Robert Downey Jr. kind of went to the dark side, but I still enjoy these movies. So
Yes, same here. I mean, there's some that I can still separate art from artist,
yeah,
and there's some that I can't, specifically certain but I still like the movies. I just gotta tolerate it. But anyway, Fridays is uncensored. Sundays are weekly recap. Can't believe that Ellen DeGeneres actually did what many celebs said they would do. But that'll be coming up on Sunday, along with a movie discussion, most likely the Dark Knight trilogy or the Snyderverse trilogy, depending on how the poll goes. Other than that, you can also find me here twice a month. And tomorrow night on X, me and Mara will be discussing Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete, which is the director's cut. It is 2 hours instead of an hour 40. So, yeah, the movie had quite a bit of a... If you watch those two movies side by side, you see quite a bit of a difference. But yeah, that's where you can find me. That's what the kind of stuff I do. I also do videos every now and then. I cover the Rachel Zegler shit whenever that idiot opens her mouth. And whenever Disney decides to speak for her, which I don't know why she hasn't bitched about that. But anyway, yeah, tonight we're enjoying Sherlock Holmes.
yes,
And I love it.
All right, and as I told Orange Chat prior to going live, I'm going to let you guys in the chat know, even if you have seen the movie, there are those who might be in the chats kind of lurking and watching this, or like there might be those watching the replay of this who have not watched the movie and are kind of just interested in like basically our takes on it. So we will not be going into the resolution. I want to avoid talking about the resolution to the case. We'll talk about elements of the case, elements of the plot and the case throughout the movie, but I don't want to go into the resolution because that takes away from the fun. Basically, the fun in reading Sherlock Holmes and watching Sherlock Holmes movies is how he figures out. Like, we know the whodunit, we essentially know that like the whodunit in this movie, but how it's done, all right, that's the mystery. Basically, that's the mystery that he needs to solve. So, and like it's like you don't want to take that away from anyone who has not watched the movie. So we'll talk about the characters, we'll talk about the elements of the plot, we'll even talk about like basically the introduction of a nemesis to Holmes in this movie, which I'm happy they didn't start him out as the main villain because there needs to be a build up to that character.
Oh, definitely.
Which we do see in the second movie, but like we'll go into that after I say hello to the chat. So from the top, I see Trey enjoyed this one, forgot how good it was. Like I said, I can't remember if I saw it in theaters or not. But I do remember like when I did watch it, I was like, this is actually good. I like this take. Because I was like, I'd read Sherlock Holmes tales, I like knew about Arthur Conan Doyle and so forth, and I was like, feels like Sherlock Holmes. This actually feels like Sherlock Holmes. Even though I enjoy the Basil Rathbone films, even though I enjoy Peter Cushing takes on the eponymous character, because there are one or two at least one I've seen with Peter Cushing as Sherlock Holmes, and that's The Hound of the Baskervilles, which he incidentally did with Christopher Lee, by the way.
There was a version that I saw of Hound of the Baskervilles that was truly a really good version. Mm-hmm. Having that dog just go up against the glass, it's like, dang, holy shit.
Yeah. So even though I enjoy those, like this, again, like I said, at its core, very much feels like Sherlock Holmes. Feels like the characters.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, Holmes was a drug addict, so like seeing him like go basically like just kind of, I won't say spaz out, but like when he's like one of the scenes where he's like going
when he's inebriated
down the rabbit hole where he's really deep in speculation and thoughts, shall we say? Yeah. That's the character. He does that in the books. Yep. He does that. Hope you guys can explain why these movies exist. Well, if this is to mean that you do not enjoy the movies, well, that's your opinion. So I'm not going to say anything against that. But why these movies exist? Well, the studios wanted to make them, and Guy Ritchie was brought in to direct them. So there he goes. That's why they
movies. these movies exist because there happened to be a perfect storm that happened in which a drug or a former drug addict was given the opportunity to play a detective or the world's greatest detective who was also a drug addict. And he was able to play it so goddamn well because every other Sherlock Holmes versions that I have seen, sure, you see the man doing his arm and whatnot, or doing his little rabbit hole, shall we say, but you don't really see them experiencing it. You don't see how they're reacting to it. Robert Downey Jr. brings that experience to this role, and he is able to bring it in such a way that a lot of people would say it's eccentric, but it's actually quite genuine.
Yes, but there's like also eccentricity to Holmes' character. I would actually even speculate as far as to say that Holmes, like that character itself, is on the spectrum. Basically, like you have basically these. I don't want to say boomers or anything like that, but the older generation going, we never had this when I was a kid. Well, just because it wasn't diagnosed doesn't mean it didn't exist. I'm pretty sure people died from the cold and flu before it was given a name. So,
oh yeah, I mean, it is.
I'm not saying like fully on the spectrum, but little details in the character. Maybe Arthur Conan Doyle himself is like putting a little bit elements of himself into this character. So, for all we know, he could have been also on the spectrum just based on how Holmes acts.
I mean, look at in order to support your theory. Taking a look at the movie The Accountant, when she's looking up math, or mathematicians in history, or it is highly speculated that a lot of them also had spectrum autism.
Yes. So,
because
like I said, just because it wasn't
so genius at it.
Yeah, just because it wasn't diagnosed does not mean it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Saying people died from certain ailments that's like the cold and flu that didn't have any names until scientists figured out what was going on and gave names to them.
Yep.
So
they I mean, if you look at Bram Stoker's Dracula, which we actually talked about, when Van Helsing is talking about blood diseases, he is like that sex problem that we have. He's talking about what would later become the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah. So there you go.
People were dying because they were having too much sex.
Jaluk, a Mara and Orange Hat will be watching on TV, feeling under the weather tonight. We'll hope you feel better, Jaluk. If you're lurking, that's fine. I much appreciate everyone who's tuning in, whether you lurk in the background or you join in the chats. Geek Archivist. These were pretty good films from my observation. I also remember the two actors who were in Marvel played Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr., the second being Benedict Cumberbatch. I never watched the Benedict Cumberbatch version, just because we don't have BBC, so I never really did. But I did read something about how Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman couldn't stand each other. Apparently couldn't stand each other, but they had to work together. So
here's a good
make
question.
What we will.
So where did you watch this? Online?
On Max.
This
version, yeah. On Max.
Do they have the updated audio version of it? Meaning, did they update a certain character's voice to match the continuity for the second film?
We'd have to go into the when we're discussing it, because I'm not sure. I never heard about that, so I couldn't tell you.
The professor's voice, was it Jared Harris?
It sounded like Jared Harris.
Okay, so
it must be the updated version, because it did sound like Jared Harris.
Yes, all right. So they did have it because it wasn't this voice instead. So it's okay.
It definitely sounded like Jared Harris, who is Richard Harris's son, by the way.
Because when I was watching it, I have Movies Anywhere, and I also have Fandango at Home. Fandango at Home has the original version. Movies Anywhere has the updated version, which is, it's like, this is so cool that I can watch this shit differently. It just works. Same with Underworld, because one version will have the updated Rise of the Lycan memories, and the other will have the original memories.
Yeah. Let's see.
That's why digital
ABD?
libraries are actually interesting, folks. I mean, yes, get your physical media, but also take a look at your digital media once in a while.
This is, I assume, the part of the fight scene in which everything slows down is how Mara analyzes when she's in the brawl. Well, in a way, yes. As a judo student, 3rd degree brown belt, or should be a 2nd degree brown belt, because they never tested me. But anyway, well, we do. How do I put this? We don't exactly exploit their weaknesses, but we find ways to off balance them. I know pressure points. I know how many pounds of pressure it takes to snap a joint, and I know basically, like, where the center of gravity is on an individual and how to put him or her off that center of gravity.
Yeah, the slowing down of things, which they call Holmes vision in these films. It's weird because I kind of have. It's a weird story to tell, folks. I mean, it's just a small diversion here. Back in 2017, you all know that I had incarceration. There was a moment in which during the time of my arrest, when the police put their hands on me, time literally stopped for what was just 2.5 seconds for the real world was like 45 seconds for me. And I was literally, it's like, do I resist? What? I mean, there are so many openings. This is clearly I could make a case for self-defense, but I should probably let this whole thing play out, which I did, thankfully. But yes, when it comes to certain aspects with a person with a mind like mine and like Holmes, because I very much identify with Sherlock Holmes in many ways, because there are many things that parallel me with him. One of those is the ability to rapidly assess things really quickly and able to make those decisions like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a trip. It doesn't require drugs if you have a mind like mine. So yeah, it's fun.
And no worries that you're lurking, Gravy. Hound, it's Wolf, Wolf, Mara, Orange, and everyone. Good to see you, Hound 3000.
Good to see you, man.
Let's see.
Mr. Bentham, good to see you.
AK, looks like the ladies finally got their Hodson. Yes. Watson, Hodson, yes. Dude, you got, okay, first off, okay. I'm not saying you gotta admit if you're a straight dude, you don't have to admit this, but like you gotta admit Jude Law was a very good looking man. He still is a good looking man. So it's like, yes, I did not mind looking at both Holmes and Watson in this movie. They were easy on the eyes, so I will give them that. But like I said, at his core, he was Watson, because people like, like watching the older movies, like, Watson comes off as like, more of a sidekick than like a companion to Holmes. Where in the books, he's actually a companion. He does help solve the cases, and as a military vet, he can fight.
And so he's also a good foil to Holmes too, because he's not afraid to call him out on his shit. Yeah, and I'm saying like he's a very good foil. So like, you don't really see that in the older movies. You very much get that in this movie, right? Where they are kind of like, he is the yin to Holmes's yang, basically. So you don't really like get that like elements of Watson in the older movies, where, like I said, he can actually fight, he can hold his own, he helps Holmes actually solve the cases, and he calls Holmes out on his shit. He'll reel him back in if he thinks Holmes is going too far. So he is at his core a companion, not a sidekick. Oh yeah, and I like that about him, because there are some versions of Holmes out there, folks, where Holmes is more pacifistic, where he's more of a pacifist, and it's like, that ain't Watson, or not Holmes, but Watson is more of a pacifist, and I'm like, that is so not Watson. What the fuck are you guys doing? Nope. But yeah, Watson was a war veteran. He was a person who was not, or had that learned experience. He could fight. He was a brawler, and so was Sherlock Holmes. For most people who don't know, he was a stick fighter, and he also knew a very eccentric form of martial arts, which Robert Downey Jr. himself knows. What? Oh, damn it! It's that one open-handed one. But yeah, he knew it, and he could also adapt that to make it look like the style that Sherlock Holmes uses. Wing Chun, that's the one that Robert Downey knows. I knew, because Donnie Yen played Ip Man, that I remember that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Hey, Soul, good to see you. I'll eventually catch up in the chat. Yeah, it was like, this is like comment I mentioned earlier, like much closer to the books in terms of the characterization. This is my Discord, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be doing a watch party here this coming Saturday. Normally I would split this movie up, but because I'm going to be doing something else Friday evening, I will be showing in its entirety the original TV movie adaptation of Stephen King's Salem's Lot from 1975? Not in 79? I don't know. Mid to late 70s. I'm like blanking on the year right now. But it was with David Soul, who airs, James Mason, and so forth, which I believe there are two modern adaptations of this book, is the superior adaptation. So, hello, Calix. Good to see you. If I miss anyone, I do apologize. I'm gonna. Would you do this when you all do Scream 1 and 2, not giving away? Yeah. If we ever do Scream 1 and Scream 2, I do not want to give away the reveal. All right, because that, like, something like that, with Halloween, with Friday the 13th, well, part 2 and moving forward, Nightmare on Elm Street, you know who the killer is, basically. You know who the killer is, so it's not like a surprise. In Scream 1 and Scream 2, it's a mystery. It's a mystery who the killer is, so I would not want to give away necessarily the reveal. I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not sure how Orange Heart feels on that, but I would not want to give away the reveal because, for those who have not seen it,
folks,
it spoils it. So
for me, Scream 1 and Scream 2 are over 20. One of them almost 30 years old. Well, how have you not seen that? Well, is what I wouldn't spoil it, but I would ask you, how have you not seen it?
To be fair, there are movies that are older than that people have not seen.
Well, of course.
So,
I mean,
so I'm saying it's like the age of the movie does not necessarily like like I think they factor in too much because like there are movies that I have not seen that are 20 or 30 like years old, basically. So, what was I gonna say? But I've like come from the experience of actually seeing movies made from every decade. Just not every movie made in every decade.
Yeah.
So.
Is
a Metalong? Abomination. Hello.
It's my age, the first one. Nice try. Seriously, you were born in 96?
So
I think that's Scream. Yeah, that was Scream 1. Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Bentham. Hello. I remember how old I was when my mom let me rent Scream. I was 13.
I was all of 96, so I was all of 11 years old when I first saw Scream.
So, I'm shocked the Brits didn't freak out when Downey Jr. was cast. Well,
the Brits didn't freak out because back then there wasn't the whole it's cultural appropriation bullshit. There wasn't that shit going on.
So, yeah, and I don't think Sherlock Holmes. Like, not to sound like I'm calling out the Aussies or anything, but Sherlock Holmes is not exactly as much of a cultural icon to the Brits as, like, say, Mad Max is to Australians. Like when Tom Hardy was cast as Mad Max, as Max Rokitansky in Mad Max Fury Road, the Aussies were pissed. Because Mad Max is a cultural icon to them. I don't think Sherlock Holmes is as much of an icon to the Brits as, like, say, that is. So I think I'm not surprised that they did not freak out when Robert Downey Jr. was cast.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is celebrated much more in America than he is in Britain,
Yeah,
because the novels of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle helped shape the police force in the United States when it came to things such as forensic deduction.
so sorry. I was like,
So yeah, um, he has contributed to how law enforcement conducted investigations in the United States much more than people realize. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a genius, and a lot of people
yeah.
don't acknowledge that.
Mr. Bentham, hello. That's why I said like, I think like there are elements of Arthur Conan Doyle in the character of Sherlock Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Willing to bet that man basically based Sherlock off himself.
Yeah.
In many, many ways, not just a little here or there. Although I do believe the drug bit of it came from a friend of his, if I remember correctly.
So
we got so much out of the
I think
novels.
so, yeah. But it was common in the Victorian times. You had opium dens and things like that. Fascinations with the occult. And Victorian England, just Victorian like era in general, in like the mid to late 1800s, which is when this takes place because the Civil War is mentioned.
This is
ancient
the
one.
It's the 1890, or it's the early 1890s, because or it's the 1890s, yeah, because or the Civil War is mentioned because during the 1890s, yes, the U.S. was still in an economic downturn due to the mending of the United States at the time, historically speaking. A lot of people don't, or a lot of people think that everything just went back to normal after the Civil War. No, it really didn't. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of frickin' tensions that survived even up till now. Folks. I mean, the Hatfields and McCoys, that shit started back during the Civil War and didn't really have a true resolution until the 2000s. So, yeah.
Mandatory English lit in schools. I don't recall like having to read Sherlock Holmes as part of my English class, but I did read definitely did read some of the stories. So
it was elective in many of my classes. It's like, do you want to read Sir Arthur Conan Doyle or do you want to read something else? You get to choose. And I'm like, Tolkien. I've read Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, don't get me wrong, but
the only time I was ever given the choice, like I had to choose between like two specific books or something like that. I couldn't just like choose the like author. And I remember like in one of my English classes was either read Tuesdays with Morrie or Phantom of the Opera. Can you guess which one I chose?
Phantom.
I was one of only two that chose Phantom of the Opera. Everyone chose the fucking Tuesdays with Morrie.
I love the Phantom of the Opera. Yeah. I've actually I saw it in Toronto when I was 13. Found over $2,000 at my feet, but I gave it to the family or to the couple in front because they lost their money. Oh man, the stories I could tell of my time in Canada, folks.
My class had to read The Great Gatsby. I remember my class had to read The Great Gatsby, and I was one of only two that didn't like the characters. Like I was like me and another kid, he didn't like the characters as well, and we were both like, well, we have to empathize. We have to at least empathize with them. And if we can't do that, then don't like them. So, but anyway, let's talk Sherlock Holmes. Let's talk the 2009 Sherlock Holmes movie.
Yeah, we'll get. Right? There's be time for other things because you guys would flip your shit if you learned learned what I had to read in English class.
So if I have there's no real timestamps that I have, but I have paused here because the movie throws you in. Into a case. Like there's no build up to the case. It's the resolution to the case where like Holmes is racing against time, trying to stop what's happening here, and that is a ritual murder. Let's call it what it is. It's a ritual murder.
Yeah.
And at the core of this, this ritual is an individual named Lord Blackwood, played by Mark Strong. I think like basically, like just physically looks born to play villain roles.
Yeah, you timed out on your pause, I'm guessing.
Oh, motherfucker. All right. Anyway, there it is.
But yeah,
Okay.
Mark Strong, man, or Mark Strong, dude. Yes, he is very underrated, Trey, because almost Sinestro. He was Sinestro in that movie that a lot of people denounce. I confess it is a guilty pleasure of mine, the extended edition. I know, cane me later, but the fact he was after someone, or I mean, he's played in both DC and Marvel, I believe. Was he in Marvel? Yes. No, he wasn't in Marvel. I don't think Mark Strong has done anything in Marvel yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't recall. Like he was in Shazam for DC.
Yeah. He was the
but
bad
for
guy
Marvel, I don't recall him being in any of the Marvel movies.
Shit. You guys fucked up, Disney. Jeez, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Now I don't want him in there because his talent's wasted.
Let me see if I can find.
Given with his hair slicked back in this movie like it is, he would do a good Dracula. Son of a bitch.
Yep.
Especially with a crooked tooth. That was creepy.
I love. Okay, let's talk about like these. I just want to like talk about Holmes and Watson. I love. Yeah. We have the introduction of Holmes where he's like I said, he's racing against time to stop this from happening, and he's almost blindsided by one of the hoods hired by Blackwood, and is saved by Watson. And Watson like basically keeps him in a chokehold for God knows how long to stop him. And like Holmes is like, I think you can let him go because the guy is basically passed out at that point. And they're having a conversation while Watson has this man in that chokehold, which is actually like an actual chokehold, ladies and gentlemen. Like that's not like that's an actual chokehold.
Yeah.
How he has his hands. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about their portrayals. Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes.
Absent-minded when he's not working, and he relies on Watson. This companionship, this partnership, is one that is that truly embodies the books. That it truly embodies what Sir Arthur Conan Doyle did with the characters. Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr. did such an amazing job because they play off each other so well. And he's like, could have sworn I left the stove on. You did.
Yes. Yes.
It's just like, I think he's had enough. You are a doctor after all.
Yes. And as Watson's letting him go, he's checking the pulse to make sure that he didn't actually kill him.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God. And those are the wonderful little things that make it into this movie that are so well done, because you see that he takes that role so seriously. I kind of wonder, does Jude Law, is he a method actor? Because if he is a method actor, holy shit, it would make sense why he's so good.
I think to a degree he is, because I've seen him play various roles, and he's done good jobs playing different characters. So I think there's like basically he is to an extent a method actor.
Yeah.
They almost come across as like a married couple too, and and they're back and forth. So.
They are. Well, essentially, they're married without being married, but it's not in a gay way. It's that they are.
They're so close. They're almost like brothers, basically. Like it's like I thought I loved the stove bomb. You did. It's like because you have like you have the eccentric one, and you have the serious one, sort of. But the chemistry is so perfect. It blends like they feed off each other. It's almost a symbiotic relationship in a way with these characters to the point where it's like, okay, like throughout this movie, and this did happen in the books. It happened in one book basically, but in the stories, Watson does actually meet the woman that we're introduced to in this movie, and he does propose to her basically. So it's like he does eventually find love. Yeah, so that's actually from the books. is in one book, but it's actually like it does actually happen. And you see, like he's ready to kind of move on in a sense, or he thinks he's ready to move on. And every time he's ready to leave, every time he's pulled back in.
It's like, you son of a bitch! I was this
You
close.
son of a bitch. Like I was like this close to leaving.
Like our partnership, relationship.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing. He is not willing to put up with Holmes's shit all the time. This is their last in this movie. This is their perceived last case together, and it's like we are finally moving on to better things. I'm getting married. You're you.
Yeah,
it's
pretty much
such a great way.
So his curiosity is always piqued because like he'll have the conversations with Holmes. Holmes will kind of drop and conversation drop what what he's going to be doing, what he's figured out, and things like that. And always like that's what draws Watson in because it's the curiosity. It's like the medical mind he has. He has to know. He has to almost like he's drawn where he has to be with Holmes at these stages of the case. And like Trey says, I love the scene where he watched him just kick the door in. Like you have like Holmes down on the ground, he's trying to pick the lock, trying to be sneaky, and Watson just comes behind him, goes bam, kicks it in.
Yeah, I love that because Holmes is like, okay, yeah, that worked.
Yeah, that works.
This is why I thoroughly rely on you, Watson.
Yes.
They play off each other just so goddamn well.
Yes. So, but it's not that he's getting too old. It's like there's a scene where they're sitting together. They've been arrested, and he's going through you want to know what I've put up with over the years. So, and Holmes it's like, why are you complaining? It's like, am I complaining? I'm not complaining. Like he's things like that, and they're having that back and forth where it's like, have I ever complained when you've played the violin at 3 a.m, or you've used or nearly burned down all my room? The rooms, our rooms, the rooms, and he was like the rooms.
How you experiment on my dog, our dog,
the dog.
The dog. Gladstone is our dog.
Yes.
It's like,
have that.
But what I do take exception is you constantly trying to sabotage my relationship with Mary. It's like that is so understandable because Holmes doesn't stop even after that. He's like, you're upset. Yes. We'll go out to my brother Mycroft's estate or country estate. Throw lamb on a spit. And it's like, dude, if I'm going to go out to the countryside, it's going to be with my future wife. I mean, she could come. It's like, seriously. He just doesn't stop. And that's when Holmes says it. He's like, you're not human, man.
Yes. So
and it does
to be fair to Holmes, it's like he's come to rely on Watson so much. He's scared of losing him.
Yeah.
It's the point where he's actually willing to sabotage that relationship. He's scared of losing him. He's actually scared of moving on from being with Watson because they've been together for so long. I'm not defending his actions. He shouldn't be doing what he's doing, but at the same time, I see where he's coming from, and I see where Watson's coming from. So,
psychologically speaking, he is childish because Mycroft is a brother Holmes doesn't want. Watson is.
Yes.
And he's like, this is a person I can thoroughly rely on, whom I trust, who I get along with, and who keeps me on my toes. I have that with this man. I can't lose it. If I lose it, if he moves on, what the fuck do I got? That is basically
you see that after this case where he hasn't had a case for 2-3 months and he sequestered himself in his room.
Yeah.
I will have enough alcohol to get through the first part of Wicked. So yes.
Oh dear Lord, my poor soul, I will pray for you.
Yes, but anyway, yes, I did like that. I do like that scene where Watson opens the curtains and each time Holmes screams because be gentle with me, Watson, be gentle, and he opens the second curtain.
And he permission to enter the armory. Granted.
So like I said, I love, like, we're not exactly gonna, like, we'll talk about elements of the case, but I want to talk about, chat. We'll talk about the characters first. Let's see if I can get a good shot of Mark Strong as Lord Blackwood. And we also got to talk about Lestrade. Oh, come on. Okay. I don't want to play it for longer than 10 seconds. Because YouTube
trick was nice, yeah. Go forward 10 seconds. Right here, yeah. And
I got to play it there.
There you go.
If I play more than 10 seconds, like, it triggers some fucking bots that copyright claims, even without sound, basically.
The algorithm, yeah.
Yeah. So, Lord Blackwood. It's like almost a quintessential villain's name, basically. Which, like I said, Mark Strong. I'm not saying he's most likely very nice in real life, but in terms of looks, it's like he was born, like he's physically born to play villains, and he is a very good villain. He kind of sows these seeds in Holmes. All right, because basically his whole belief stems from, like, the supernatural. And how do I put this without revealing anything? But stems from the supernatural and believing he has the power to control people, to control events, to the point where Holmes cannot stop them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to reveal. I'm trying not to reveal too much. Like, it sounds very vague what I'm saying, but, like, again, if I were to say a little too much, you would put two and two together. Yeah. Like, in a way, in his demeanor and his actions, very much. Like I said, I don't want to reveal what, like I said, I don't want to, like, reveal the resolution, like, and how everything is done, basically. But this is not going to spoil anything, because we see it in the trailers. If you watch a trailer for this movie, you'll see this. Basically, he's essentially tried and convicted. We don't see the trial. We basically, it jumps forward like 3 months, and he's going to be executed. Basically not public hanging, but hanging. All right. And he requests to see Holmes prior to his execution, right? Where he sows those seeds within Holmes and things like that. That, like, that he's more powerful than Holmes realizes, that he, that basically, death cannot keep him, sort of situation, and he ostensibly rises from the dead.
Yeah.
All right. He rises from the dead, and it's like, okay, what happened? Basically, how did this happen? And that is the mystery, ladies and gentlemen. Essentially, throughout this movie, is essentially not the who that's orchestrating everything, but how it's how it's happening.
Yes, there are, and to basically, without giving too much away, it's essentially a science versus magic kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely because it's a running theme throughout the film. Science, magic, which one is it? Could there possibly be a marriage of both? What do we have going on?
Because there's even a scene really where Watson says, where where Watson says he, like, met a man in India who down to the day and the number of bullets it would take to kill him, like predicted his own death, essentially. Yeah, so it's like, he himself basically postulates the possibility that, well, there could be something more than science to this. Like, there could be something supernatural to this. Like, not saying he firmly believes it, but there's the possibility.
Yes, that there is something that is or that might actually be possible that we can't explain. And honestly, folks, that is actually a rather open mind, which nowadays people call you a kook for, but back then it easily gets you locked up. So, but it's also something that most geniuses actually had to theorize.
So, I actually liked the reveal, because while I can see, while some people were wanting a certain thing to happen, to me it kind of would have been blasphemous almost. So I actually liked the reveal. I'm not going to go into it,
Yeah.
but I liked it. Hey, Wiley Dave, good to see you again. Hope you
Well,
enjoy the conversation. Um,
yeah.
as I said, for those who are just tuning in, we are not going to go into the reveal for this movie because if you have not watched the film, or if you've not watched it in a long time and can't quite remember it, I don't want to give away anything. It's a mystery, and part of the fun of watching mystery is
The reveal.
basically
But
enjoying for yourself basically the first time the reveal.
the
So
thrill of the chase.
yes,
And I do like the reveals. The reveals are actually good in this movie. We're not going to cover them, as she said.
yeah,
But I
Mhm.
do love how in this movie, when you have these kind of things, you have to actually show something that seems innocuous,
Mhm.
but is actually very poignant to
Yes.
the reveal later on. It is something so small or something so out of the ordinary, just weird, you wouldn't even think of it, but yet it's there and you missed it.
It feels like convenience abomination, but like I said, if you read the books, Sherlock Holmes notices a lot of small details that, like Orange Hat says, might seem innocuous, might seem like what could they possibly have to do with anything involving the case? Well, in fact, have a lot to do with the case.
And that's
Basically.
something that he actually describes with Mary at the dinner. It's like
Mhm.
it's actually the small details that are the most important.
Yes.
And
So
he
like,
tries to do it with Watson, but she's like, "I insist you do this or
well, she
lose your
says,
observation on me."
Watson, do it on a stranger. It's like she kind of
And it's like, "Oh
what can you read
shit!"
about me? Yeah, like what
Yeah.
can you read about me? So it's like while it does seem like convenient,
Hmm.
like I said, it's very much how like it happens in the books. Basically, like Holmes notices things that we're like, okay, there's like, for example, these frogs and what looks like a pot of some sort. Like what could that be? It's like, does that have anything to do with the case? We don't know. But he puts these pieces together.
Hmm.
Um,
It's small little things here and there. I mean, as we said, this guy or the chase is this guy comes back alive. It's in the trailers, folks.
mhm.
And there is such a fun line that when the game or when the case starts, it's like it's a matter of professional integrity. No woman wants to marry a doctor who can't tell if somebody's dead or not.
Yes.
because because
Just
Watson is the physician for him
well,
when
that's fair
when he
abomination.
dies.
Like I said, I liked everything about the reveal because I think like if they were to at all lean into the supernatural, it would not feel like a Sherlock Holmes story. It actually would not feel like it's like even with the Hound of the Baskervilles, there was a supernatural element to that movie to that story as well, but there was an actual logical explanation to it.
Yeah, I mean that's the
So
thing. You're
that's the thing. Sherlock Holmes stories basically.
And while Sherlock Holmes is very much a person who goes into logic, he's not one to believe in superstition. He
Mhm.
hates superstition because it can't be explained. He knows that there is something about it, and believe me, folks, if he saw a ghost, he would go after that mystery, and he would chase it down until he found out exactly how the ghost turned up.
Yes.
And that's just how he is. It's same with this movie. It's like, or when it's like, he has a particular effect on him, and as if he can get in their heads. And the way he looks at that guard, it's like, really, just
Yeah.
I could find my way. Get the hell out.
Pretty much.
It's just that's how he is. He doesn't like he doesn't like superstition. He is very much ahead of his time. He knows
Yes.
that things can be explained if you simply observe what is going on.
Mhm.
Also, Lestrade is so fucking great.
I love. I've only seen this act other than this role he's played with, like in the movie in the Sherlock Holmes movies. I've only seen him in one other role, and that is at World's End. But I like him as an actor. The actor's name is I have the
King
IMDb
Cock.
up. Eddie Marsden.
Yeah, he was also in Hancock.
I saw Hancock, but it did not register with me. I saw it once,
He
and I was
was
like, "This movie is, yeah,
Dead Man Switch. He was the Dead
yeah."
Man Switch bomber.
So, but like I said, like that movie did not register on me at all. But at World's
Yeah.
End, I remember him from that. He was one of the friends in that
Mhm.
World's End. But I
mean,
love him as Lestrade, where it's like there's
Yeah.
like this begrudging, like he does not like Holmes,
No,
but
he doesn't.
but there's a begrudging respect for Holmes's ability to solve these cases.
Yeah, it's like at one time you would have made an excellent inspector, or
A
you would have
criminal.
made an excellent criminal, and you an excellent inspector.
Yes, that like had me dying when I.
He is always just zinging
Yes.
Lestrade.
Yes. So it's like I said, like he does not like Holmes.
Yeah,
But there's that begrudging respect.
he was
like
in V for Vendetta. He just didn't have the beard and mustache.
Okay, all right, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was one of the Shadow Council.
Okay. I'd have to go
Yeah.
back and watch. I have to go back and watch that, but I think like I remember that now. I only
Yeah.
remember at World's End because I watched that movie recently, mainly, and I remember him from that.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, kind of like that with Batman.
Yeah.
And like it's funny that you bring up Batman, Trey, because when we talk about the next movie, Game of Shadows, where we're fully introduced to Professor Moriarty, Moriarty is like Bane to Batman, because Bane, if you don't know in the comics, like don't go off of Batman and Robin, don't go off that shit.
Yeah,
Bane
no.
is actually the intellectual equal to Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Right, he's actually incredibly intelligent. All right, so basically Moriarty in that regard, Moriarty is like the Bane to Bruce Wayne's Batman, basically.
And he's also one of the only villains, well, for Bane and Batman. Bane's one of the only villains who has actually seriously come this close to killing Batman.
Yeah, he actually breaks Batman's back.
Yeah.
He really killed him. So.
And when it comes to Sherlock and Moriarty, well, Reichenbach falls anyone.
Yeah. So. But
if you know your Sherlock, you know these references. It's not even any spoiler, really.
Yeah. But here it is, like a thing, like Lestrade. Basically, Lestrade is like kind of a foil to Holmes, where it's like you got the interest of Holmes. Holmes is able to see like small things to the point where Watson's also able to see small things. He's picked up some things from Holmes, like for example when they come to the tomb that's been broken open, that Lord Blackwood's character is somehow risen from the dead, and like even Watson's pointing out who won the rugby match, he's pointing out basically how the cops have ruined the crime scene because we can't take any footprints now because you've walked all over the crime scene, you haven't preserved anything,
you've obliterated any potential evidence.
Yes, so. But like I love. There's a reveal to there's a reveal to this basically, but I love when Lestrade punches Holmes.
Yeah.
and Holmes later on goes like, I think he enjoyed that too much.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so much in this movie, folks. There's just so many great lines, especially between Holmes, or there's such great lines between Holmes, Watson, and then there's great lines between Holmes and the other characters, specifically Lestrade, because this dude is a bumbling buffoon, quite literally. It is a wonder how he made inspector, because, folks, you got your cops, you got your patrolmen, and then you got your inspectors, which are basically detective levels in the U.S. And he is of higher station than normal cops, but yet he's always calling Holmes to help solve a case.
Yeah,
he doesn't have the ability to solve it himself.
No. To be fair to Lestrade, at least to the character, Agatha Christie kind of did that as well with Hercule Poirot with Inspector Japp, basically. So, where it's like But like they're like he's capable to a point, but
Yes.
he does not notice the small details that Holmes does.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's stupid, but Holmes is on another level.
Yeah. And
So.
Lestrade is capable, don't get me wrong. Very
Mhm.
capable. It's just that he doesn't, as you said, he doesn't have that. He's not on the level of Holmes. Now, have you seen the show Elementary with Johnny Lee Miller and Lucy Liu?
No, I know what you're talking about, but he's kind of like Sherlock Holmes-esque kind where he notices.
No, he is Sherlock Holmes.
He is Sherlock Holmes in that? Okay, so.
And
right.
she's Joan Watson instead of John Watson. I mean, a lot of people say it's woke. It isn't. It really isn't. Yes, she is gender swapped. But honestly, it is a modernized take, meaning modernized as in today's time. And I think that they actually did that very good because they bring in many of the known characters, Moriarty, yada yada. Later on, even Lestrade comes in, and there is such a great. I mean, you really should check out the show. If you got Hulu, I believe it's there. Okay. It is truly one that I really like because they even bring in the different stories like Reichenbach, Baskervilles, and whatnot. It is truly freaking fun to watch how they adapt these to modern day time.
See, I'm fine. I don't want to, when I say I'm fine with the gender swapping things like that, I like, in the regard where it's like set in modern times, basically. Yeah. Like if it were to be gender swapped or race swapped and they were to set it back in Victorian times, then it's like it's an adaptation of an actual Sherlock Holmes story, like genuine adaptation where it's set in the Victorian times and things like that. Then I'd have a problem with it because, well, Watson's not a woman. Watson's not is not anything other than a white male. Yeah. So it's set like basically I'm fine with that, like setting it in modern times.
It's an interesting premise too, because in this, to give you just that idea, it's well known in the from marketing and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Joan Watson is his drug sponsor because he's an addict that's trying to get clean.
Well, again, that's Holmes.
It really is great because you see the struggle. You also see how well she actually is very good for him. And yes, you also see Mycroft. You also see their father, which I don't really think ever really came in the books. I can't remember all the books that I've read, but his father is also played by John Noble. So yeah, great choice there.
Have you all seen Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock? No, because
I haven't.
It aired on BBC and don't have the channel. So,
is it still ongoing, or is it a movie, or is it a show?
It was a show. It was a series.
Oh. All right.
I do know that. But like I said, it aired, if I remember correctly, aired on BBC. And well, if you don't have BBC, kind of hard to see it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Dracula 2000 did that, set it in modern times.
Johnny Lee Miller was also in that too. So,
yeah. Hello, Winky.
God
hello.
Loves you anyway.
And Traces, I think it ended.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so
4 seasons, 3 episodes on Hulu. All right, nice.
But yeah, so like Lestrade is a recurring character.
Yeah.
And not just this movie or the movies, but in the stories. This is a scene that you brought up where.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get a shot of her face. Okay, this is where this is basically right here.
Yeah.
Where he's noticing the small details about. Well, she's not officially Watson's fiance at this point because he has not found the right ring.
Yeah.
Like that's like so it basically hasn't officially proposed to her, but like basically she is going to be his future wife. Yeah. And he's noticing small details about her, like she's a governess. She is a governess to a young boy who's impetuous, who basically kind of
flicked ink at her.
Flicked ink at her basically, and it's a certain shade of blue that while it's hard to get off, and he noticed a little bit on her ears.
Yeah.
and that she had been engaged before, because he noticed a ring shape on a certain finger of lighter skin, that she had been somewhere where she tanned easily, to the point where it's like once she took the ring off, it's still like the skin has not. I don't
To
think I
give you
could really.
guys, yeah, it's a ring or it's a band or it's a faded band. If
Yeah.
you look at my finger, you can actually see
Mhm.
right there where you see a faded band.
So
Because, well, I wear index finger rings.
and so and since he's already coming from the perspective of feeling negatively towards her, mainly because while she's not doing this at all, she's not doing this at all to purposefully, by
Yeah,
taking
she's
Watson away from Holmes. She
yeah.
is in his mind, she's taking Watson away from him. So he's he sees that, and he's like, well, I'm going to point out something negative about her, or that he assumes negative about her, and basically call her a gold digger. All right, in so many words, he calls her a gold digger.
And I like what she does too.
Yeah,
She is correct on all counts besides one.
mm-hmm.
I didn't leave him. He died.
Yes.
And it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, that is an oh
even
shit
then
moment.
You realize, yeah, dude, you did kind of cross a mark or a line there.
Yes.
And I absolutely love how Watson settles that little dispute there in the next scene. He decks him.
Yeah.
He just straight up
punches
fucking
him right in the nose. He punches him right in the nose. Lovingly, because they're friends, but he punches him right in the nose. He tells Holmes, during the movie, I knew, she told me she was engaged. I knew this. I know this. It's she wasn't keeping anything from me. And that's that's a reaction of he's seeing the woman he loves basically being smeared, or reputation being smeared right in front of him, and even though it's by his friends, he's gonna deck him.
He indeed deserved it. And I love what he said before he got smacked. He's like, you have the grand gift of silence, Watson. It really does make you valuable as a companion.
Punch.
And it's
right in the nose.
And it's a swift jab, folks. I mean, it's like that. And it's like, holy shit, man. And I love Holmes. He's like, oh. It's like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, Holmes did earn it. Holmes did earn it. So, but anyway, she's
when you smack your friend in the back of the head. Yeah, it's kind of like Gibbs in NCIS, just right up the back of the head.
So she's more of a tertiary character, but she is but she is important to the extent where it's she is that. In Holmes's childish view of what's going on, she is the reason why Watson is leaving. But again, like I said, she's not doing this on purpose. She's not being vindictive to Holmes, but he kind of sees it that way.
Yeah, she is important to a degree because, especially in the second one, but she is important, but she isn't important for for Holmes. It's a challenge. For Watson. She is a driving force for him to finally be free of Holmes, but also to stay friends with Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, I am getting married. She's going to be my future wife. That doesn't mean I'm leaving or I'm destroying our friendship. Mm-hmm. This is just something that Holmes isn't able to click or isn't able to process. He's trying to understand this stuff. He doesn't get it because Watson completes him that much.
So I'm skipping forward a little bit, chat.
Yeah.
Because.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Irene Adler, who is a character from. Well, she's only really a character from one story. However, she is called the Woman by Holmes in the story. So she is the. So they do get her character right to an extent. She
very much.
Yes. She's the Woman. So, and like I said, she's a criminal. But she's in a way, perfect for Holmes. Because again, it's Well, she's a love interest basically in this movie. However, like, if you read the story, I can't remember. Is it four? Four. In one of the stories, like, she's only.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember if it's.
She is essentially a marriage of Holmes and Watson. However, in a negative or tone. She has Watson's tenacity. She has Holmes' intelligence, and she uses it for all the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And
so it's like the way they have her character in here, she like that is true to the character. Even though she was only in one book, that is true to the character.
Because
she's kind of like Catwoman to Batman.
Yeah, she loves him. It's like, I love you, but it ain't working. It isn't.
Like, I love you, but I can't be with you because like I'm not going to change who I am, basically, and he won't change who he is. So, but there is that love there. As weird as it is, there is that love there.
Yeah, and I love how Watson talks about it. It's like, how is it that the only woman you love is a professional criminal? I mean, she's made a proper idiot out of you. What is? I mean, honestly, what is it? And I love how he reacts when he sees her in this movie. I mean, he completely just. There's a moment when she reaches into her pocket and he grabs her hand and raises a fist, and it's like, why are you so suspicious? Should I go chronologically or alphabetically?
Or alphabetically? Like I can like. There's a multitude of reasons.
Yeah,
I should be suspicious of you.
And she is dangerous. She is extremely dangerous, and that's why she is basically the only woman he has ever raised a hand to, because he knows just how dangerous she is. But it's like, it is a habit that he has when a person reaches in their thing. That's like, what else are you going to assume? Especially with her.
I'm going to disagree with you here, Winky. I think Robert Downey Jr. captured a lot of the Holmes character. His character is actually closer to what the character is in the books.
Yeah. I mean,
people don't realize, like, I don't think really realize that about the character because they're so used to how he's portrayed by, like, Basil Rathbone and Peter Cushing. I'm like, I'm like, because I've read the books too, and I think he's very close. He's very close in his demeanor, in his interactions, in his behavior. He may not be proper because he's a Guy Ritchie touch to the character, but at his core, I see Holmes in his.
I mean, this is not the Deerstalker Cap master detective.
I wouldn't call Holmes timid. Holmes was not timid.
No.
Where are you getting timid? He was not timid.
No.
Like you saying, you read the books. I'm not doubting you there, but
stick fighter.
Yeah.
In the books,
he was not timid.
Stick fighter. A lot of people are like, well, when you see Sherlock Holmes in many of the movies, you see how very posh and very proper he is. What you don't see is that the man is also a stick fighter. He's also knows a martial art. He is very dangerous in his own right. So watch the special features to this film, folks. You actually understand just how much the other.
I think you're using that word wrong.
Go into.
I think you're using timid wrong. Timid implies like
pacifism.
Like Holmes is not a pacifist.
No.
Maybe like he didn't exactly seek out physical confrontation, but if it happened, like he didn't exactly avoid it either.
Wrong, dude.
Yeah,
you're using timid wrong.
Like he didn't exactly seek out physical confrontation, but he didn't avoid it, or at least if it happened, he dealt with it.
Yeah, so he knows how to avoid it, but he also knows how to engage it if he needs to.
Yeah. So it's like so when you see Holmes fighting in this, it's not like he's seeking out the physical confrontations. He's holding his own because the physical confrontations are happening. So it's like he's forced into those situations. It's not like I'm going to go like other than the underground fights that you see him engage in. Which is like basically where he
road to Dublin.
where he places bets and things like that.
Yeah.
The other fights, he's thrown into them. I'm
Yep.
pretty sure, like if those guys, like he would not have fought those 3 guys
Yeah.
if they hadn't tried to fight them to begin with.
Yep. And the thing is, I love that too, because in that fight, you see that when he's in his own element, he's able to handle himself. The second he sees something that draws his attention, such as her, because that is exactly who he saw, he was completely unbalanced. And that's when shit went, or that's when he had to basically rectify the situation quickly before it spun out of his control.
Yeah, like that. Meat or potatoes. Like
yeah, it's like meat or potato. My 10 minutes are up.
It's not a film of a. This is not a film of a book.
No,
there's elements from different stories in this movie, but it's not like it's not an adaptation of an Arthur Conan Doyle story.
No, it's an original story.
Yeah. So.
Using Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's elements.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, because that fight. I mean, yeah, I know we are going a lot longer than expected.
It's both, Abomination. It's both. He had to rectify it because he was unbalanced, so he had to basically get back in the zone.
Yeah, it's
so
like
before he got pummeled, and end the fight so he could find her, basically.
Yeah, this mustn't register on an emotional level, except that he allows it to, but he uses it to quickly end the fight.
Mm-hmm. So,
and that whole scene was just boss, because it's like, holy shit.
Yes.
And you even hear some of the people, where'd that come from?
Yes. And she's working for, like, basically she hires Holmes. Like, we're not going to reveal too much, but she hires Holmes to find. I love how, like, Watson keeps calling him a ginger dwarf, and Holmes is like constantly corrects him like midgets. Just like constantly corrects him midgets.
I see. I've upset. No, you're speaking wrong. You're misinterpreting the whatever foreshortened peoples. And it's, I mean, he's not politically
I think Trey's
correct.
going to disagree with you, Winky.
Yeah, I just admit you're both. Yeah.
So anyway, but anyway,
she foils
so
him at every turn.
That's the extent of her, basically her character. She's the equivalent of either Catwoman or Talia al Ghul to Batman, basically. She is again, there's the love there, but she's not going to change her ways. Oh my
God, I just realized something.
Mm-hmm.
Each interaction between Irene and Holmes in this movie, she wins, Holmes wins. She wins, Holmes wins. She wins, Holmes wins.
Mm-hmm.
It is a perfect back and forth. It's a dance between these two.
And she's not a Mary Sue. She's not a Mary Sue. She's capable. She's capable, but she's not perfect.
No,
it's not just the criminal element to her, but she'll even when she's defending herself, trying to fight. Well, she gets smacked around. So
and she's a damsel in one scene too. So,
yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think of all the characters, the main characters, because the rest of the characters are basically elements to the plot that's going on. When I say the elements of the plot that's going on, I mean the mystery, basically.
Yeah.
And the mystery, ladies and gentlemen, is, like I said, you have Lord Blackwood, played by Mark Strong, who's risen from the dead. And before London gets into a full panic at one point, basically, but before London goes into full panic mode, we have to figure out what exactly is going on. And a lot of it leads to a little bit of a conspiracy. But Holmes is able to piece together all the small details he finds along the way to figure out how do I put this? The why and the how. Because I think in the conversations, one of the conversations that Lord Blackwood has with Holmes, again, is he tells him 3 people are going to die and you can't stop it.
Yep.
Right? I'm not going to say I'm not going to say who those people are. Again, you have to watch it, because there is there is a little more to this plot than just him rising from the dead, essentially. Because, like, Orange Hat said earlier, it's very much the supernatural versus science. Is there something supernatural happening in this movie that science cannot explain? Or, again, can science actually explain what's happening?
Yeah.
And
it's a wonderful way of finding out which.
Yes. So, and that's why I said, it's like you said, the Civil War is mentioned. Basically, like, there's elements of actual history that's like, happening in this movie where the Civil War is mentioned, how the U.S. is basically still not like, bounced back economically from the Civil War. Because, a little bit of a spoiler, one of the things that Lord Blackwood wants to do is actually recolonize America, because he wants to take advantage of the fact that we're not at our peak at this point. We're not economically at our peak, and he wants to take advantage of that and make it a colony again.
Mm-hmm.
How he wants to go about doing that, well, you have to watch the movie. But he, like I said, that's one of his goals. That he's like, he wants to. Well, basically, he wants to take over the world almost.
Yeah, he's the brain.
Yes.
And there's a character that's very much a Pinky in this. So, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. But again, I don't want to go into too much detail, because if we go into too much detail, even the seemingly small details might give something away. So
Yeah.
I don't want to go like this. These two 1 and 2 streams are going to like pretty much be on the shorter side, because we can't go into the how or the why, because we'll spoil stuff.
Yeah, we don't want to go too much, or we don't want to hurt the story. We want to convince you to. Our goal is basically to convince you to watch it yourself, and to, if you haven't, and that's how we that's basically our purpose in this. It's like, we want you to watch it yourself to see or you're going to see a little bit here and there, sure, with what we do, but we essentially are trying to get you. It's like entice you to want to see it for yourself.
Like, I like this shot here where Holmes has scribbled stuff on the wall, and he's plucking the strings on his violin, like he's going down the rabbit hole. Like, little scenes like this. Like I said, if we were to go talk about everything that happens, or most of everything that happens in this movie, we'll take away from like this part right here, where it's like he act like again, per the character is. Okay, I used the word drug addict earlier. He's not exactly a drug addict, but he does use.
He's a user.
Yes.
He's not a complete wreck.
No.
Let's just say that he's not a complete wreck. But at this at this point in the film, he is in a low point. But we're not going to spoil why it's a low point. Yeah,
he does partake at a risky level. But like like I said, he's a user, but he's not an addict.
And considering at the conclusion of this particular scene,
yeah,
it's like, oh shit.
But I think that's where we're, like I said, these are going to be like on the shorter side streams, and I think that's where we're going to call it, because we are like, if I go any further in this movie, it starts getting into the reveals of what's going on. So, if you have not seen this movie, all right. I recommend watching it at least once, get your own impression of it. Not just go off of what we think of the of this movie or the two movies in general. You can just like see how his methods in solving the case and so forth, with a little bit of a Guy Ritchie touch to it. Yeah. So I love the chemistry between Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law as the titular character and his companion, Watson, John Watson. I like Rachel McAdams as Irene Adler, who is an actual character from one of the books, and she is portrayed pretty accurately, in her relationship with Sherlock Holmes. I do like that fact that they are not afraid to show that Holmes is a little bit childish, and when it comes to certain
elements.
The only thing we didn't talk about was Mrs. Hudson.
Oh my god!
She's only in a little bit, but I love like he's also a little bit childish with her. Like she's like the housekeeper, and she's in the book. She's the housekeeper.
The absentee
Mrs. Hudson. She takes
landlady.
care of the house. She's the housekeeper. She's an actual character from the books. He's like, a little bit childish in his behavior towards her because he calls her nanny.
Yeah, is it
Like,
poison? Nanny.
Nanny. So,
oh my god.
well, Holmes
You
is,
have
we're
a
not saying
longer
Holmes is,
engagement?
we're not exactly saying Holmes is childish. We're saying that in his behavior in some scenes,
His antics are.
and antics are a little bit childish. He himself is not childish.
He's self-defensible. He is literally trying to keep his life stable, even at the expense of other people's comfort.
So,
Losing, or again, Watson getting married. This will tear our relationship apart. I don't want that. How else would a person who does drugs and
to be fair to the scene, he has not had a case in 3 months. So like that is also part of like what's going on in his interaction with Mrs. Hudson. And like I said, we only see her near the beginning of the movie. So in other instances, he is affectionate towards her. But you have to like keep the scene, like what's going on in the plot in mind when we're talking about this, because he's at a low point in his life where he has not had a case in 3 months. His mind, the quote like I have on the thumbnail, my mind rebels at stagnation.
Give me problems, give me work.
So now Mrs. Hudson, I believe, is an actual character. He doesn't only have Watson. He doesn't only have Watson. Mrs. Hudson does keep house. So
I mean, Holmes.
So like she has they do have a relationship in terms of like that.
Yeah.
So.
And that's also remember earlier we spoke on perhaps Holmes is a bit on the spectrum. Another thing that actually supports that is his inability to let things go. His inability to leave things unsolved.
Yes.
This man obsesses with it. It's, as he says, my mind rebels at stagnation. Give me problems, give me work. It is the chase, the mystery that literally drives him. He can't turn away from it. But however, his mind is also supercharged constantly. The scene with Marion Watson at the restaurant, before they arrive, he is noticing everything, and so he has to shut it out before he goes nuts. It is such this movie is also very much psychological, as it is a mystery, or it's not just a mystery, it's a psychological mystery as well.
So, but that is, like I said, we're going to end it here, Chad, because like if I go if I go any further, I could risk revealing elements of what's leading up to the solving of the mystery.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Like if you have not watched the film, like I recommend watching it at least once to get like your own impression of the movie, not just ours. Much like with the second one, the sequel, Game of Shadows, where we'll be talking about the introduction of it. How do I put the name? Like as I put like the ultimate foil, criminal foil, I should say, to Holmes. When like I said, I like how it's kind of like the Joker in the Batman. I hate kind of constantly comparing this to DC basically, but it's easy. And I'm saying that it's like so easy for like if you're making a Batman movie to use like the Joker or the as like the main criminal foil to Batman because he's more well known amongst the rogues gallery. Whereas like it'd be easy to make Moriarty like the bad guy in the first one because he's the main foil to Holmes, right? To make him the bad. But I appreciate that Guy Ritchie didn't do that for the first movie. There needs to be a little bit of a build up to Moriarty, because like there's little clues dropped here and there in this movie that he's coming, especially the
end of the film.
Yes.
However, we won't tell you how.
Yeah. So Which is, like I said, I appreciate that because like it's like introducing. It's like it would be like it'd almost be in a way like introducing Thanos at the beginning of like the MCU universe, where it's like there needed to be a build up to Thanos. I'm saying like in terms of that, you couldn't just start with like a big bad guy. You had kind of had to build up a little bit too.
A small tease.
Yeah, like a small
And
tease
then
here and there.
a little bit
Then
more.
here's the main bad guy that we're leading
And
up
then
to.
here you go. Yeah,
In
it
terms of
really
the
is
build up,
done very
not the
well.
equivalent, but in terms of the build up, it's like small teases here and there.
Yeah.
Who plays Moriarty? Well, we'll be discussing that next week. So I mentioned it at the beginning of the stream, essentially, but we'll be going to full detail on who plays Moriarty next week when we discuss Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, the sequel from 2011 to this film.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you to everyone in the chat for hanging out with us for this discussion. I will be on Orange Chat stream tomorrow, discussing Final Fantasy Advent Children, and I gotta figure out. You said the director's cut, right? So I have to figure out where to watch that.
Well, if you need, I'll let you borrow.
I might have to because when it's director's cuts, it's very hard to find.
Yeah.
And so yeah, if you let me watch it through your account, I can watch it tomorrow. Just fresh in my mind. And then Friday, no stream because for two reasons. One, depending on when I get my special copy of Wicked, I'll be suffering through that. Most likely Friday. And then I'll be doing something offline with a few friends. I feel like if I watch Wicked Part 1 Friday, I'm definitely going to be needing to do what I'm planning on doing with my friends later on, and that is shooting fake guns in Call of Duty. Because I'm like, and
pew, pew.
Yeah, and then Saturday, Discord watch party, just showing the original TV movie adaptation of Stephen King's Salem's Lot from the late 1970s. So yeah, starring David Soul, James Mason, Lou Ayres, Jeffrey Lewis, Fred Willard actually is in this as well. You might know him from as more of a comedian, but this is like a serious role essentially that he plays in this film. So,
isn't he the guy from that Rodney Dangerfield movie? Fred Willard, or was that a different guy?
Might
be a different guy.
I don't remember him in the Rodney Dangerfield.
He was a comedian that was a professor of history that also was a Vietnam.
Oh no, it's not he. That's not he. No, you're talking about Back to School. No, that's not he.
Yeah. Whoops.
No, like he's in like the Christopher Guest movies. He had a small part in This Is Spinal Tap. He was in Waiting for Guffman and Best in Show. Like I said, like you might know him from his more comedic roles later on in his life. But it's like, like I said, he's playing a more serious character in this film. So yeah. So come check that out, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be starting it on the earliest side because the movie itself, it was originally a 2-parter on TV. So it's going to be a little over 3 hours long. So I'll start it on the earliest side. Saturday evening. And then Talk Nerdy to Us will be on my channel this coming Sunday, about 8:30 p.m. Eastern, where, yay, I get to talk about Wicked.
Oh, poor soul.
Yeah. I'm a good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so...
You got that going for you.
Yeah, but anyway, like Orange Chat, let everybody know again where they can find you and whatever you have coming up.
Friday will most likely be Orange Hat Uncensored. Depending on if I have anything going on in real life, because we're doing some major installations going on. But also Sunday is going to be the weekly recap. We are probably going to be discussing the Dark Knight trilogy as our movie discussion, but we'll also be covering some Hollywood topics. Monday is going to be no longer Monday Night Rants, but rather Monday Night Awesomeness, because, well, there's less to rant about and more to celebrate. So, yeah, same rules apply. If you want to join, if you have something to celebrate, you can join. Tuesday is the last of the Guilty Pleasure theme streams, and I will have a new theme that or tune into that at 1 p.m. I will have a new theme set up for December. It's not going to be Christmas related. Well, not the Toy and Santa Christmas related. It will be a different Christmas related. But yeah, it's going to be a discussion, or this one for Guilty Pleasures will be The Dark Knight, or not The Dark Knight, but a Man of Steel, rather. Man of Steel. And Tuesday night is the Barroom Podcast with me, Society Reviews channel with me and others, Rick Aragorn, Rob Motto, Eddie Brock, and Cider Hype from Bounding into Comics. So yeah, check us out on Society Reviews channel. He does great work over there, Bible Lens and other or movie discussions. So tune into them too. So yeah, other than that, next week, Sherlock 2 and X tomorrow, 8:30 exclusively on X. I do not do singles anymore on YouTube due to the fact that they benched my channel. They warned my channel because, well, they didn't like the fact that I was following fair use. So yeah, I can actually get that warning lifted after this stream. So I will, but I'm not going to return that to YouTube. I already did a poll. Many of you said keep it on X. So, and next week will also be Spirits Within Final Fantasy. So nice. And that's it.
So yeah, and like it's like I gave basically the streams coming up for me. Next week is
Did we score the film? Did we score the film?
Oh, well, we haven't scored it yet, but next week is Thanksgiving, so the single will be on Friday next week instead of Thursday because next week is Thanksgiving. But scoring the film, what would you give it? I guess like the objective versus subjective score.
Objective, this movie I would put at an 8.5. The constant back and forths of the editing can throw some people off guard. Guy Ritchie is a very
that is his style. So
yeah, that is his style. So it's not for everybody. So objectively speaking, it can throw people off. So it hits an 8.5. However, subjectively, this movie is a 9.5 for me. I love movies that challenge the intellect, that make you have to focus on even the smallest things. Because by doing that, you really do expand your ability to observe. It's all elementary. But yeah, moviegoer, where just based on entertainment, this movie is definitely a 9 out of 10.
I basically agree with you just about everything there. Like I said, Guy Ritchie, much like Tarantino, is not for everyone. And it all depends on, because of his style, your subjective taste and how he portrays his films. But he does do a lot of quick shots, especially where Holmes is focusing on certain things in the room. It's very like this. So you do have to be very much paying attention to everything that's going on, and a lot a lot of it is Guy Ritchie's take when he's doing a film. I think movies in general are shot out of order because a lot of it depends on if it's location filming and scheduling. So a lot of movies are shot out of order. So that's not exactly necessarily a Tarantino thing. The only time I've ever known a movie or anything to be shot in order. Hold on. Sorry, I had to answer a call.
Sure.
Oh, well, the time. Okay, yeah, but the timeline's all over the place. Okay, I get that. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little bit all over the place because there's back and forth. So a non-linear film. Okay. But there's one back to there's only one movie I know that was shot in order, and that's per the not orders, but it was a Oliver Hardy and Stan Laurel film. Laurel and Hardy, the comedic duo from like the 1920s and 30s and so forth, called Sons of the Desert. And Stan Laurel insisted that the film be shot in chronological order because he and Oliver Hardy would often ad-lib scenes. Because of that, if they just were to shoot the movie out of order, they'd have to remember everything they ad-libbed and fix it. So they actually shot that movie scene by scene, chronological order. So nothing contradicted itself within the film.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only movie I know where it was insisted upon, and that's the reason why. And it's a short film. If you know Laurel and Hardy, you know their style. I think you guys would enjoy Sons of the Desert. So it's funny. In my opinion, it's funny. And there is a dirty joke in it that got past the censors. I'm not going to say what it is. If you watch the movie, see if you can pick it out. But it's a dirty joke that got past the censors of the time in that movie. So, how the fucking censors missed it, I have no idea, because it stood out to me. But it got past them. So it got past the how do I put this? The nanny crowd, essentially. But anyway, that is Sherlock Holmes from 2009. Almost said 2009. We'll be talking Game of Shadows from 2011 next week, Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, have a good rest of your day or evening, wherever you are in the world. And we will see you all tomorrow on X, talking about some Final Fantasy Advent Children. Peace.
Night.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.